I can't renew my strawman's driver's license or motor vehicle license. Well, first of all, I don't have a strawman's driver's license in Alberta, and I don't have a motor vehicle license in Alberta, so I couldn't care less. So anyways, whoop-de-doo. So actually, they're probably more lawful in Alberta, in Canada, than they are, and I think that's because the Queen is there. I think that's really what it is the Queen only lets them go so far. And you know, so you know, they have, to some degree, I mean, they don't have things like you see here going on in Canada, you know. Anyways, this is proof that they have no authority, and they know it. This is proof that it's nothing more than a commercial transaction. They're looking for money. That's all it is. In July 2010, on my way back from a private information sharing in Vernon, British Columbia, I got stopped by the Calgary City Police. And what happened there is the cop says, can I see your driver's license, registration, insurance? And I said, well, there's no such thing as a driver's license under Texas law, so why would I want one of those? And he says, well, you're in Alberta. And I says, yeah, but Alberta recognizes Texas law. And so then he didn't say anything. Then he said, well, have you got any identification? And I said, yeah, I says, and I pulled out this. And you can pass it around. You send me an email, I'll send you an electronic version. But I just want to point a couple things out. First of all, it's a photo ID affidavit. It's verified by an officer. It's verified. Here's the officer of the court. It's a government document. It's verified by an officer of the court. And it's a certified copy. And it's apostilled for international commerce. So go ahead, pass it around, take a look at it. Anyways, so I showed him that. And he looks at that and he says, is there a birth date on here? And I explained that to him, by the way. I always do. He says, is there a birth date on here? I says, well, I have no first-hand knowledge of a date of birth. So anything about any birth date is hearsay evidence and inadmissible as evidence in a court of law. And that shut him up. He didn't ask for a birth date again. Okay? That always shuts them up. Okay? They never ask for a birth date after you tell them that. Okay? I have no first-hand knowledge. Do you have any first-hand knowledge? Does anybody have any first-hand knowledge? And then the evidence is hearsay, isn't it? Matter of fact, I've seen court cases to say that photo radar tickets are hearsay too. Okay? And so you have a right to question them about the cameras and all the rest of it until you determine the veracity of their evidence. It's all hearsay. Anyways, so that's what I told him, is that's hearsay evidence, and there's no such thing. It's inadmissible. Anyways, so then what happened is he took that. He came back in a few minutes. He says, "Can I see your registration insurance?" And I said, "Well," I said, "I might have that." I said, "But do you have a court order?" And he says, "No." He says, "But if you don't, I'm going to seize your vehicle." And I said, "Well," I said, "you got the gun, so I suppose you can do whatever you want to do, but if you're going to violate my rights, then you need to be prepared to take me over there and blow my brains out, because by the time I'm done with you, you'll wish you did, and I'll do it all within the law." So then, you know, it went back and forth, and finally I showed him in Alberta statutes I come back from a private information share. I had all of this stuff, you know, in my truck. So I went and got my book out and I showed him the PowerPoint presentations, how a driver's a person and a person is a corporation. I said, even in Alberta, none of that stuff applies to me. And after he looked at that, he went back. So first of all, as a little background to this, when I got stopped in Lethbridge, they had like 5 cop cars out there, and all of them with their cherries going for about an hour while they went in with this big charade. And finally, you know, I just went and they gave me a ticket, right? Well, and as part of my criminal complaint, I told them how they had 5 cop cars out there and wanted to make sure and notice everybody that anybody that thinks they're free, you know, that they're not, that it's all martial law and all the rest of it. Well, this time, there was like 3 cop cars that showed up, but none of them have their cherries going, right? And none of them came to see me, okay? It was only the one cop that came and talked to me. The rest of them were all back there in their cars. Because in the first time, I got the names of all the cops and I added them in as co-conspirators, okay? Because then it's a conspiracy, right? Because there's 3 or 4 of them that are doing this stuff. You see what I'm saying? So I went and put that all in my criminal complaint. So now they don't want to be associated with any conspiracy, and they don't want to be having their cherries going. So there was no cherries going, and there was only one cop that came and talked to me the whole time. And he'd go back and talk to his supervisor and then come back and talk to me. You see what I'm saying? Well, finally what happened at the end of the day is he came back, he gave me my paperwork back, he says, "You're free to go, have a nice day." And that was the end of it, eh? So, and then the Alberta Sheriff, what happened is we actually got in a shouting match, eh? And I told him, I said, your codes and rules and regulations only apply to corporations. It has nothing to do with me. And he says, "I don't care. I know the law." And I told him, "I already noticed your boss." And he says, "I don't care." And so finally, I just come unglued, and I says, "Look, if you're going to violate my rights, then you need to be able to be prepared to take me over there and blow my brains out, because by the time I'm done with you, you're going to wish you did, and I'll do it all within the law." And I was yelling at him by the time I was saying this, and that's when he said, "No thanks." And and then what happened is he issued a ticket to that thing that's on that apostilled photo ID affidavit, and so you know, and the address there is in it's not even a good address anymore. So I told him, he wanted to know, "Is that your address?" "Oh yeah, whatever." And that was all. I left. And it was for speeding, actually. But anyways, there's at least 2 and possibly more classes of citizens in all common law countries. The government has made perfectly good laws that are technically correct 99% of the time. Because we have given our servants in the government the right to presume certain things, the burden is now on us to defeat those presumptions. The best way to defeat any presumption is to go on the attack. Presumptions are all taken in martial law. The fact that they're presuming anything is proof that you're in a martial law jurisdiction, and they have no authority whatsoever. Right now, we have provided the government with the reason to believe that we're not sovereign. The government is operating on that assumption or presumption based on prima facie evidence that we ourselves have provided. Qualified immunity. This is a citation on qualified immunity. Protects government officials from liability for civil damages insofar as their conduct does not violate clearly established statutory or constitutional rights of which a reasonable person would have known. So they have qualified immunity, and they can get away with it once, okay? And that's what happens. And what happens is by serving them with this, you take away their qualified immunity and you put them in the position that you got them. And you know, if they're smart, then they'll put you down as sovereign in their system is what will happen. We have to build a prima facie case that is admissible as evidence in court that we are sovereign. In today's world, in order to be truly sovereign, you must be prepared to force the issue up to and including court. In Rome, they had slaves because they were not prepared to live free or die. In the modern world, you do not have to die for your freedom, but the attitude helps. And forcing the issue, number 1 rule is educate yourself. We're in this position because our parents and grandparents did not understand the issues. You got to study out the issues. You got to know the law. And it's not like it's that complicated. You just have to know who you are, really. Most lawyers do not understand the law. According to former Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, Earl Warren, 75 to 90% of all trial lawyers are either incompetent, dishonest, or both. All lawyers, it's true, all lawyers are officers of the court. When you have an officer of the court representing you in court, you've turned yourself into a ward of the court, and a ward of the court is an imbecile. So, you know, if you want a lawyer, then, you know, you need to understand that. The buck stops here. The ultimate responsibility rests with you. You must accept responsibility for your own actions. You must prepare for your future. Sovereign citizens receive nothing from the government. If you do nothing, then you're at least partially responsible when they violate the next guy's rights. All it takes for evil to succeed is for good men to do nothing. And if the good men are doing nothing, are they really good? The important thing is do something. It is not necessarily to use these forms like I've done them. Make up your own if you want to. The following process builds a track record and a case showing your assertion which is admissible as evidence in court. They already know you're sovereign. All you have to do is say the words. This procedure builds a case against your public servant for multiple felonies. They will never do anything that comes close to admitting that they have committed multiple felonies. If this procedure is done properly, the system will take care of your problem for you. you will rarely get a response. You have to learn to read between the lines that they send you a response. If they do not send a response, then they've acquiesced. You know, there's a couple cases I'm working on right now that where people have been attacked, and they're wanting them to plea bargain because we served them with some stuff, right? Well, that tells me they're on the run. If you plea bargain something, then it's over. You cannot appeal. You cannot do anything, okay? It's done. It's finished. And so, you know, depending on what maybe there's some issues where you might want to plea bargain, although I can't think of any. You know, as you need to be aware of that, is never ever plea bargain, in my opinion. If you plea bargain, then that's finished. And so you've admitted you're a slave, basically, by plea bargaining, because whatever the charge is that you're agreeing to, is you're agreeing to the status that goes with it, you know? And none of their charges affect we the people. Anyways, I developed this system with that foreclosure in Arizona and disturbing the peace, and I sent out hundreds of registered letters. So the document is called, and if you look right here, so now we're going to talk about this document and why a lot of stuff is in here, okay? And so it's called notice and demand, okay? Notice is common law. They put up notice all over the place, okay? You see those speed limit signs? That's notice, okay? The check stop, if they have a thing about we're going to do check stops, or if we're going to do whatever they're going to do, okay? That's notice. That's why they put those signs up there. That's common law. They have to give notice. So you have to give them notice. And you cannot hold them responsible till you give notice. Then the demand, okay? Sovereign's demand. It's not negotiable. It's not a request. It's a demand, and it's now. And you have to talk like the king. You don't go begging for things. The king doesn't go beg. You know, you demand. Get off your butt and take care of business. It's called administrative procedure. It's also called common law. This gives notice to the authorities about your assumption and then gives them an opportunity to rebut it. It defeats their presumptions long before they're able to take them. Oath of office acceptance. That's one of the first things I send them, is an oath of office acceptance. And if you look in there, it's actually attached. It's on the back. The oath is all we the people have. If you can, get a copy of their oath. But if not, give them an oath. And that's what I usually do, is just give them an oath. And the oath of office supersedes everything else. The oath of office is your trump card. Equality under the law is paramount. This is essentially saying that if you're going to send me to a mental institution, you have to go there too. And this is one of the tactics they do, is they'll say, this guy's nuts. We're going to put him in a mental hospital for 30 days. And they'll put you in there. And they did that to my brother. And my brother went in this mental hospital for 30 days, and they went and wrote a 4-page report on him, and they said, well, he's not nuts, he just thinks a little differently than everybody else, essentially is what they said. And so then they wanted a plea bargain. And my brother says, you threw me in that mental hospital for 30 days, and now you want a plea bargain? He says, I want this case dismissed, and he walked out, and the case got dismissed. And so then, after that, you know, that's one of the strategies they have, and they defeat it, okay? My brother, I guess I come from a family of rabble-rousers, because it's more than me that do this stuff, let me tell you. Anyways, I got 6 brothers, and I got one of my older brothers was on national TV in Canada, you know, back in the 90s, you know, about taxes and stuff like that. And anyways, the next thing that they cover is competence, incompetence, and representation, okay? And if you read the next paragraph, it's talking about that you're not competent in my affairs, and I am competent in your affairs, and you have no authority to represent me, and if you think you're representing me, you're fired. And that's exactly what they do, okay, if you think about it. And let's take a break. It's time for lunch.
Wow.